Trevor is a former senior officer at Sussex Police in the UK, and then a Chief of Police at St Helena Police and Commissioner of Police at Royal Turks and Caicos. To be joined by Robert Clark, who is the Commissioner of the Royal Anguilla Police Service, Police Force. So, Robert.
Barry, you're currently the Chief of Police in the British Overseas Territory on the Falkland Islands. The interviews with David Price, Chief of Police down in the South Atlantic in St Helena. Of course, and the other thing to remember about the job, it had about 5 or 6 hats. Because it's so small, the small territories very rarely do you have one job. So I was the Chief of Police, I was the prison governor, Chief Immigration Officer, head of the fire service, head of sea rescue, head of emergency planning. But what kind of got me the job, I think, was they were then just developing an airport and they wanted someone with airport policing experience. So it was a fascinating job for all of those reasons and those hats I had to wear. So one day you would be policing and the next day you'll be in the prison dealing with some issues in the prison. And then we had to develop a sea rescue service. Overseas, I'd encourage this. This first tip is, unless you have to make a decision in the first 3 months, don't. Because you'll make a better one some months down the line. And so whilst there is some similarities, they're immensely different territories. And St Helena is not quite crimeless. It does have crimes, but it's actually, in terms of community, a very safe community. Very safe. And it will have the number of crimes in a year that Turks and Caicos has in a month. So, for example, one crucial area is when we have an incident, say a police-related shooting, to help the independence of that investigation, we would assist each other by sending investigators to other territories. So there is a level.
And I suppose the really good example of that recently for me was we had a number of very serious incidents on the island, unfortunately murder and attempted murder, and the Royal Anguilla Police Force was at saturation capacity in relation to investigative and responsive to those incidents. So I was able to lean into the FCDO through the Governor's Office, through Andrew, and we received a number of deployments to support us. And at the moment, we're currently sitting at 95. So this year, through budget negotiations, I have managed to negotiate with the government an increase in budget that will probably bring us closer to 110, 112. We're established for about 130, so we'll try and push on next year and the year after to try and bring us to where we are. One is police corruption, and another one is the murder of a customs officer in the first week that I arrived. And if I put into some context for the viewers and yourself, I think I arrived on island on the 29th, 30th of April last year. And within the first 8 days, there was the brutal murder of Garmin Greenaway, a customs officer outside his house, and 6 other attempted murders. I put that into the context of 95 police officers.
So absolutely great police force. It's a small force. There's 28 of us in total. We run the entire control room for the island, so maritime, fire, police, ambulance. We are isolated down here. We're very dependent, as are a lot of as I come on to St Helena and Ascension when I've just finished with the Falklands. We're very dependent on that boat once a month to bring in us our supplies. And you very quickly learn to be very self-sufficient. Last year, I think we had 48 arrests for the year. I know some of your viewers that are watching in their forces are thinking, goodness me, I had that in an hour. So it is safe. There's no or very little acquisitive crime, very little theft. Burglaries are unheard of. Everybody looks out for each other. Our main problems are really public order, drink-related type incidents. People have a little bit too much to drink. The problems we face, so the difference between the UK and policing an overseas territory, there's far less of you, but you've got to provide the whole spectrum of policing. So I have to police nationally on probably what is, in some areas, a shift of 20. There's 28 of us covering 24 hours, covering the entire remit. So there's 2 or 3 officers wearing different hats. So negotiator, supervisor, peace, covering, as I say, covering a numerous things. A story really at Christmas, last Christmas, we had someone walk into the front office with £600 in cash and handed it over, said, I've just found this outside in the street. It's that kind of community. Anyway.
The next morning, I was somewhat surprised, as was the DCI and the Deputy Governor, who've also been involved in planning it, to hear on the radio. Radio announced that we've been invaded by a team of Angolan mercenaries who were now staying at the hotel because they'd put 2 and 2 together and got 222, I think, never mind 4, and decided that this team of Angolans were actually mercenaries rather than, I think there was a cook, an aide de camp, and various other people who were there. Not a firearm or anything between them, but with the Deputy Governor having to go on the radio and reassure the community that we weren't being invaded. And that's one of the major issues we have in such a small community, is trying to recruit potential and develop potential officers from within the community. It's very, very hard for them to learn policing in an environment where, because of the small size of the population, because many of the families have been here for generations, they will find themselves dealing with people they know almost all the time. Like quite literally every day, the officers will know somebody, and in many cases be related to somebody we're having to have dealings with, either as a victim or a suspect. That makes it really challenging for them to learn. And the key issue we've been wrestling with for a very long time, even going back to your days, is the retention of officers.